When it comes to buying a new bike, it's absolutely paramount that you pick the right size. There are loads of different adjustments you can make to your bike, like the stem, the saddle, even the seat post or the crank length, but every different adaptation you make to your bike will affect the way it performs and the way it feels. Ultimately, if you're buying a too small bike or even a too big bike, it's never going to feel quite right. So in this video, we're going to help you choose the perfect bike size for you.
Before we start, let me explain sizing, because it's not quite as simple as just basing the bike around how tall you are. Most manufacturers will label their bike in sizes small, medium or large, etc. But others will also label them with a number. These generally range from 48 to 62, and that corresponds to a measurement in centimetres from the bottom bracket, which is down here, to the top of the top tube. There is, however, nothing consistent about the way manufacturers measure their bikes. Just because you've always had a 54 from one brand doesn't mean that a 54 from another brand will fit you. The effective seat tube length is just one of three really important ways of measuring your next bike. The other two ways of measuring your bike are known as reach and stack, and these are internationally regarded standards. The reach refers to a centre line from the bottom bracket measured to the centre line of the head tube, and your stack refers to a very similar measurement, but then includes the height of the bike as well. It might sound slightly complicated, but hopefully the graphic on your screen will help. Now, it's kind of like buying a pair of trousers. Trousers come with a waist size, but they also come with a leg length. And much like buying trousers, you will have to try on several pairs or ride several different bikes to find the perfect fit for you.
Before we get onto that though, let's get one easy but fundamental point under our belts first. Now that is, what is our saddle height and how can we find it? Now a really easy way is to find a wall like this, get onto your bike, placing both hands on the handlebars, place one pedal all the way down to 6 o'clock. Now put your heel on the pedal. Now you should find your legs straight. Then when you go to clip in and put it back into normal position, you find your leg is slightly bent. Really easy, but really effective way of finding the right saddle height for you.
Finding your correct saddle height is relatively easy, and that's because you've got plenty of scope for adjustment. When it comes to setting your reach though, you're much more restricted in the adjustments that you can make, even though it is potentially more important to your comfort on the bike. Now the reach of different bikes will vary within a manufacturer, but also from brand to brand. And this depends on the type of riding the bike is designed for, but also the size of the bike you're riding. Racing bikes, like the ones you'll see at the Tour de France, are generally really long and really low, whereas a gravel bike will be a little bit shorter and higher. The numbers that refer to how the bike will be are known as stack and reach, if you remember those from earlier. If you're new to cycling, you're relatively more relaxed about your riding, or you're a little bit less flexible, you'll probably favour something that's shorter and higher. Whereas if you're into racing, you'll probably favour something that's longer and lower. For example, of different types of geometry, Canyon put their three bikes into different categories: Pro Sport and Sport geometry. So how will you decide on where your bars need to go? Well, this is going to depend on a few things. If you have long arms, a long back, and you're very flexible, you'll probably be able to get yourself into a longer, lower position. If you're less flexible or you have a shorter back and arms, then the opposite is of course true as well. And then finally, the type of riding that you do is going to play a factor as well. Generally speaking though, with your saddle in the correct position, the relationship from your shoulder to hip angle should be 40 to 45 degrees to horizontal underneath your wheels, with your arms then protruding at 80 to 90 degrees down to the bars. If you do need to adjust the height of your bars, this is relatively quick and easy to do so by adjusting the spacers, whipping them out and putting them beneath to raise your bars, or vice versa to lower them. But if you do need to adjust the reach, this is going to be a little trickier. You'll probably need to buy a new stem, or in my case, you'd need to swap the entire handlebar setup. However, if you do need to adjust your stem by more than 2 or 3 centimetres, you probably should have a different size frame. And whilst you can move your saddle fore and aft by a few centimetres, this should never be done to affect your reach. Your saddle should be dictated only by your legs, so put it in the correct position and leave that where it is.
So you found the bike you absolutely love, but you're kind of in between sizes. Maybe it's a 54 or a 56, a medium or a large. Now the difference between both of these bikes is the stack and the reach. The reach being this and the stack being here. If you're a larger rider, you're going to have a larger seat post, meaning you need the handlebars that little bit higher, hence the stack. But if you want a kind of more racier style and more racier feeling bike, then most riders go for a smaller bike and adding a longer stem. But if you want a kind of more stable and more upright position on the bike, then go for the larger bike with that higher stack. Ultimately, you can pick a frame size on your height and your saddle height alone, but you really need to ascertain what kind of frame you want. Do you want long and low, or do you want upright? If you did enjoy this video, then make sure you give it a big thumbs up. And for more how-to videos, why don't you click on me?